Chris from chrisalbertfitness.com. I'm back in Cali. I traveled out to Louisville the last few days to help to raise awareness about veteran suicide. I didn't compete. I participated in a lifting event there. We lifted a combined total of over 23 million pounds to raise awareness for the 22 veterans a day who commit suicide in this country. I got a question while I was out there about wrist wraps from somebody on Instagram, and the gentleman asked me if I ever use wrist wraps or a belt or any other supportive gear during my training. And sorry, I'm trying to avoid this light over here that keeps going on my head. My answer to this really depends on what your goal is. First, I don't use any of that stuff. And the reason why I don't use any of that stuff is because I'm not a competitive power lifter anymore. And I feel like if I were to use that sort of stuff, not only do I feel, I know that if I were to use a lot of that stuff unnecessarily, then it would create pathologies in my movement, meaning that I would not be able to move naturally. On the other hand, if you are a power lifter, whether you're a geared power lifter or not, I do suggest at least wearing a belt, especially on your heavier lifts, because part of powerlifting is to get the highest amount lifted possible within the rules, and you're competing against other people who use belts. So if you're a power lifter, you use the belt by breathing, taking your stomach, try to push my stomach out, pushing it out, and breathing out and pushing out against the belt so that you have more leverage during the squat. And as you're going down, that pushes out, you're down here, that helps you really get up. But for me, on the other hand, I want my abs, my core, to be as strong as possible for me, not for a powerlifting competition. So I don't use the support of a belt while I'm training anymore because I don't need it. I don't need it to beat anybody. I don't need it to do anything. And if I was training for that, that would just be to feed my own ego so that I could lift more and show all of you out there that I can lift a lot. And while I love you all, and I definitely want to impress you all with my knowledge, I'm not here to impress anybody with my lifts anymore, and I'm not competing for trophies. I love the sport of powerlifting. I think it's a great sport, but it's not what I do anymore. And though I respect it so much, my time on the platform for now is over. Maybe in the future. And if I do go back to powerlifting, I will use it. In my youth, I used to use knee wraps, and I had to stop doing that because while I was using knee wraps, what happened was I was also playing high school football. My first powerlifting competitions, I used knee wraps, and then before I switched to raw powerlifting. And I stopped doing that because I was 16 years old at the time, and I was lifting a lot of weight. I think back then I was squatting 400 pounds at 16 with the help of knee wraps and a Z-suit and a belt. But my strength in my muscles grew a lot faster than the strength in my tendons did. And so I eventually, on the football field, tore my ACL and had to have the ACL surgically reconstructed. So I don't use knee wraps because I feel like they actually put a pathology in my movement. And I had to actually retrain myself on the squat to be able to squat without knee wraps. So for me, right now, where I am in my life, I prefer natural movement more than anything, without the help of a belt. You can see videos of me as little as a year or two ago where I was wearing a belt, but I haven't used one in a long time, partially because last year it got stolen out of my car, but I wasn't using it before that. I do, on the other hand, encourage the use of lifting shoes, and that really depends on your own personal structure, your own personal body mechanics. I do a lot better with Olympic lifting shoes with my heels raised up a bit because I have a quad dominant squat now. If you have more of a hamstring dominant squat, I think that Cons or Chucks or flat-soled shoes actually do well. And I've also squatted in combat boots before, my old Marine Corps jungle boots, and those actually helped with the raised heel, but they weren't so good for ankle flexibility, and that's why I switched to the Olympic lifting shoes. So that being said, with lifting gear, if you are a competitive power lifter, I think that it's a-okay, depending on what division you're in. If you're multiply, use multiply gear. If you're a single ply guy, use single ply with belt, wraps. And if you're raw, practice with the belt and wraps, because your competition is doing it as well. If you're not, and you have no plans of getting on the platform and you're just trying to impress people, then my suggestion is to really build up your complete raw strength and try to make yourself as strong as possible without the gear, without depending on the gear. So what I want to know right now is, what are your questions? If you've got any other questions for me about this video or anything else, put them below and I will answer them on another video. If you want to check out my blogs, you can check them out at chrisalbertfitness.com. Peace.